Towards the beginning of the COVID pandemic, I ended up having a day where I woke up with some unhappy lungs. They were kind of tight, a little bit sore, but honestly, if you're me, you know that's not that out of the ordinary. It happens from time to time. But I was being super cautious. I went out, I got tested, test came back negative, and I was already feeling better like the next day. But to be super, super safe, I ended up broadcasting out of the station's backup studio, kind of like in isolation for 2 weeks, which, I mean, if it was a nice studio, it wouldn't be our backup studio. It has some limitations, and it almost took away my ability to have phone calls. I am broadcasting out of the back studio today. It's a little bit more isolated from everything. The only issue with this back studio is taking phone calls back here is just a little bit more difficult. So I thought instead of taking phone calls this hour, I would try and relive some of my favorite phone calls of all time. Because I've been doing radio stuff for a long time. I've got some favorites. The only problem is I don't have the audio for these phone calls. So I'm just going to reenact them. I'll be playing the role of myself and the caller in all of these phone calls. I will try and do my top 3 this hour. Starting with number 3, it went a little something like this. I said, "Hey," and then he went, "Hey, Chief, can I call you Chief?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, only if I could call you Frank." And why did I choose Frank? I don't know, but it was the first name that kind of just popped into my head. He said, "Yeah." So I was like, "What can I do for you, Frank?" And then he came back at me with that very traditional, "Can I request a song?" And I was like, "Yeah, Frank, what do you want to hear?" And then this is where it gets good, because he says, "I don't know. Anything you want to hear. Anything that's good in your opinion." So I stop, and I ask him, "Can I call you Chief for a second? Because if you want my opinion, I'm going to need to be Frank." Which I think is a very clever thing to say. His reaction? Okay. Which I think it went over his head. I don't think he picked up on it. That was my number 3 favorite phone call. I actually don't even remember what I played for him. I was just so proud of myself in that moment. The next phone call I'll reenact for you is without a doubt the closest I have ever come to insulting a dead person for the sake of comedy. I kind of stand by it. I honestly do. I'll share it next on The Edge. Broadcasting from our back studio in isolation today with limited access to our phones. I wouldn't say I'm proud of this, but it did end up being my number 2 favorite phone call. It was very memorable. Picture this, a phone call. It starts with, "Hey," as most of my phone calls do. And then the caller came back at me with a very different energy. It was a very sad one. And normally radio is a pretty happy place. So they brought me down to their level pretty quick. They told me this sad story about how their friend had just died. And they were wondering if I could play their favorite song as like a tribute, which at the time their favorite song was Thrift Shop by Macklemore, which tells you exactly what year this was. So I tell them, you know what, sure, I'll try and get the song on for them. I'm sorry for their loss. And then they say, "Thank you so much. That song just killed him." Which, to this day, I say is a very poor choice of words, given what we know about this person. But when I was presented with this statement of "this song just killed him," there's one thing you definitely shouldn't say. You shouldn't say, "Not literally, right?" Because that's kind of insensitive. So I said, "Not literally, right?" And I guess I was being a little insensitive. But luckily their reaction was to laugh and I guess realize their poor choice of words. And then they said, "Ha ha 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 ha, no, not literally." And then I felt better, and I guess maybe that made them feel a little bit better. And that was my number 2 favorite phone call. We have made it to my number 1 favorite phone call. The phone call where if, I could get a phone call tattooed on myself, I probably still wouldn't, but, this would be the one if I was going to. I used to be, many, many years ago, I used to host a show really late at night that was on pretty much until the bars closed. So I had this segment called The Last Call, where my last call of the night was usually a person who had been drinking. And this person, they had been drinking. It starts off much like any other phone call. I said, "Hey," and then drunkenly they responded, "I want to request a song for all the homies." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure, we can do that." But I thought I would have some fun with them. So I said, if we're going to give us a song for all the homies, I need to know their names. Let's make a list here. Who are the homies? And they were drunk, but they gave it a go. They started listing off the homies' names, which was great, but that was too easy. So I stopped them. I say, no. I need a list of all the homies' names in alphabetical order. We're going to do this right. Which then broke their brain because I don't know alphabetical order, which is a lie. Everybody knows alphabetical order. It's easy. It's just A, B, C. So instead of either just kind of like laughing it off or giving up and hanging up or whatever, they start listing off the homies' names in alphabetical order. They get to maybe like the fourth or fifth one and then get frustrated because they realize they forgot a homie who should have been in there earlier. They had too many homies and they didn't want to leave any of them out, which I think is a very sweet and very nice gesture. And because of that, and because of their effort, I think that it might be my favorite phone call of all time. As of right now, there's still lots of time to add in more favorite phone calls, but I would say that's number one right now. So if you ever want to request a song for all the homies, you better be ready to name some names. It's The Edge.